What's going on, guys? It's Scott here and welcome back to Fudge Muppet. Recently we've been getting a lot of requests about how to make a synth character work for a build, and as usual when we get a high volume of requests for something, you guys get a video in return. So today we're going to be talking about how you can rationalize playing a synth, but I want to stress that this video is not about whether or not the Soul Survivor is actually a synth. Personally, both Michael and I suspect that the Soul Survivor is human, but there are loopholes, theoretical possibilities, and postulations everywhere, and I'm going to show you how to use them best. Please make sure you watch the whole video before commenting in case you say something I did say or in case you post an argument that I already addressed. There are spoilers in this video, but obviously by now we're going to assume you know all the plot twists in Fallout 4. If not, then it's probably best you go finish the game and don't watch this. Also, there is definitely more than one way to rationalize being a synth, but I don't want this video to go on for hours, so I'll just be taking you through some of the best tips that I think you'll find most useful. I tend to avoid the whole Jar Jar Binks is actually Snoke level of conspiracy stuff. So firstly, I want to get it out of the way that your pre-war memories did in fact happen. Everything would have happened until you were put into cryostasis in Vault 111. Nora, Nate, Sean, listening to the Silver Shroud as a child, it all happened to your character, or at least who they used to be and who their memories were taken from. Essentially, your character has to be a replica of themselves, a synth that replaced its own original form. Your original form could have been taken to the Institute and harvested for even more scientific material. Why keep the backup in a vault when you can keep it in the Institute or put it to work for another grand experiment? So you wake up in your cryo chamber and you see Sean get kidnapped, but then you black out again. It's during the 60 following years where we'd envision a change to happen. Someone from the Institute comes back to Vault 111 and takes your human body and replaces you with a synth version of your former self. So you look exactly the same, you sound the same, and to others, you are the same. So when you meet the Vault-Tec representative who remembers you, it does make complete sense. Also, memory transfer like this is definitely possible. The Institute knows how to play around with memory and the like, and in Good Neighbor, if you visit the memory den, Amari even says that they transfer memories from the brain to the computer and back to the brain all the time, so it's definitely plausible that the Institute would be able to outperform her. As a reminder, Generation 3 synths are made from organic matter to be just like human. They can eat, sleep, drink, and all that, and while they supposedly don't have to, you could have been programmed to feel like you need to. One only has to look at Dance to realize how strongly one could feel human and act human but actually be a synth. In the normal game, you also never have to eat, drink, sleep, and you can get perks that make you seemingly superhuman, such as Aquaboy, which makes you able to breathe underwater. I do want to stress that I personally believe that being able to do these things that normal humans can't isn't evidence of being a synth and is just fun gameplay granted by unique perk choices. But at the same time, I could acknowledge this as being good rationalization for someone who wants to play a synth character. On the note of being a synth, you'll definitely want to avoid playing survival mode as it's not realistic to get diseases easily as a synth. People say synths cannot even get diseases, but there's a lot of contradictions about synths in Fallout 4, so it's hard to know what to believe. Could be lazy writing or intentional, but that's besides the point. The point I want to address with disease is that you can still get the mole rat disease from Vault 81. This seems to be a problem, but the way you'll have to rationalize it is that Generation 3 synths are made from organic matter, and therefore their cells can still be affected by diseases, although perhaps severely less so than a real human. This would explain why you never cure the awful mole rat disease, yet carry on throughout the game normally, only losing a measly 10 HP instead of being really sick. Also, I just want to note that Gen 3 synths do in fact bleed. I see a lot of people saying that you're not a synth because you bleed, and again, while I think the Soul Survivor is a human, the bleeding argument simply doesn't cut it, if you pardon the pun. I also hear people say that synths can't take radiation damage, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, I've personally killed some Gen 3 synths with radiation weapons before. But on to more important things. Let's talk about the Institute more. Why the hell would you be replaced as a synth? What's the point? Weren't you just meant to be the backup and nothing else? It's hard to think of a motive, but then again, perhaps Father had you replaced afterwards without Kellogg's knowledge. Perhaps with no one's knowledge but his own, and someone or something else that helped him. Perhaps you would be his own unique pet experiment. I mean, he does call you his experiment at the end of the game. By seeing the flaws of humanity when it comes to diseases through experiencing his own incurable cancer, he could have desired to create a future leader of the Institute who is a synth, but is even more like a human than Gen 3 synths. Perhaps you're a Gen 4, or just some weird experimental prototype. It would explain any differences between you and the Gen 3s. You aren't exactly like them, and you also don't have a recall code, and you're not recorded officially as a synth in any Institute terminal. Perhaps this is because you aren't a synth, but it also reinforces the theory of being created in secret by Father. Father dreams of furthering humanity, and in a hypocritical way, he labels synths as tools and humans as superior, yet acknowledges that synths evolve faster and don't have the same issues humans do. Your character playing as a synth could be the next stage, his personally created experiment, which was given free will from the start and ended up passing all his tests, becoming fit to continue his and your legacy. So standing on top of the CIT, Father says some of these quotes to you. I had you released from Vault 111. I had no expectation that you'd survive out here in all this. Certainly it was no longer necessary to keep you suspended. I suppose I wanted to see what would happen. Father is a great manipulator, and if you're rationalizing playing a synth, you would say that he needed to test your survival capabilities and how you develop your own human nature. If he really wanted to see you or be united with you for emotional reasons, he wouldn't put you through such a crazy test. He would have given you a lot more assistance using Institute resources, instead of just letting you loose and not expecting you to survive in a place which he himself would never want to live. He remarks that you finding him and infiltrating the Institute is extraordinary, as if impressed by his test subject. I mean, we're talking about someone who made a synth version of Child Sean, even knowing that that kid will go through years and years thinking he is human and never aging. When your character acts offended by him treating you as just an experiment, he offers this to say, "Soon I'll hope you'll understand. Everything I've done has been for the future." With this in mind, you can further rationalize that everything he has done has been meaningful. Your character thinks they are a human, but after passing Father's test, he has actually created the perfect human, the perfect leader for the Institute. Someone who will never die, someone who thinks they're human but is actually a synth with free thinking, a synth that has convinced itself of its own humanity through many trials and tribulations, and hopefully, a synth that shares ideologies just like his. You are also a synth that cannot be recognized as one. You are truly the perfect replacement for a dying father. Father could have even created the synth child version of Sean just to give you the emotional energy to take the Institute and humanity even further. Synth Sean even says some really eerie things to you as well, such as, when people die, can they become synths? Does that make them alive again, or still gone? Overall, you get the picture. Remember again that I'm not saying that there's anything super solid to any of this. I just want to help you and provide you with your reasoning behind playing your own synth character. Maybe we'll make a synth build soon. And that wraps up the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So while you may think that the Soul Survivor is a human just like we do, perhaps you want to play a synth character. Now you can. I'd love to hear your ideas of rationalizing being a synth down below in the comments. Sub for more content like this, and I'll see you soon with even more of it.